All right. Um, Hello. Today we'll be presenting our presentation on what defines a leader. My name is Andy Torres.
I'm Michael Walsh.
And I'm Robert Zaradnik.
Today we'll be discussing a little bit about sort of how to identify a leader based on sort of how we measure leadership qualities, what a leader looks like early in their career, general actions and behaviors of a leader, comparing current leaders to emerging leaders, and also take a closer look at how to develop a leader. Also, looking at practices and methodologies, different practices and different personalities, and also the development process and what goes on during that time, and also take a look at company culture. So for the first half of the presentation, we're gonna talk about how to identify a leader. So we can move on to next slide. So to start off, it is important to observe their work, their character and work ethic. A true leader communicates with their team to keep them updated and show that they are sort of being valued within the team and the company. Also, a true leaders will be the ones sort of taking initiative and driving the results when it comes to any project or assignments with the team. So, and also, they'll be the ones sort of challenging themselves and others to improve the workplace environment and to achieve their team goals or personal goals within the company. Secondly, uh, sort of provide opportunities in the workplace for leadership skills to emerge. That's sort of a important opportunity or measure of how we can take a look at qualities of a leader. So by placing them in leadership roles, so they can experience higher sort of a higher position. This will allow sort of the company and the HR department to see how that employee goes on learning, how they handle pressure, and how they take new responsibilities within that new position. So true leadership qualities are seen when they are wanting to be challenged and are eager to learn new skills. Thirdly, ask around. So when you ask around, their past coworkers or past boss or past team members, you'll have a better insight of how that employee or future leader sort of has impacted sort of the people they worked with. If it's a positive impact, negative impact, how good they sort of contribute within their team. So this will sort of give you more additional information about sort of their personality and qualities. Lastly, use predictive assessment tools and personality assessments. So below here, I'll list some of a few leadership and behavioral assessments that are available. Um, when we take a closer look at the predictive index, it actually predicts sort of characteristics and cognitive ability. So you can see the behaviors and on-the-job performance. And the CPI 260 and the NERIS, Top Explorer, and the Clifton Strength Assess, they're all sort of determine personality type and optimal roles to sort of see how they are able to interact with other people and give you a little bit about them. You can go to the next slide. So what a leader looks like early in their career. So here's a little quote that I was able to find in the article. It's called or the quote is, a daily focus on getting things done and getting those little things right before we're trying the big stuff. So this is what sort of separates the top performers from the peers. Um, the biggest thing sort of where everybody, a leader rising is shown is authenticity. How authentic are they in the work environment? Not trying to be someone else that they're not. That's sort of like the biggest issue as of right now for many leaders. I put this little image here, which is the fundamental four core leadership skills for every career. So you need these four skills to sort of move on and become a leader within your team and company. So first off is self-awareness, being able to understand behavior's impact on organizational outcomes. Secondly, I think the biggest one is communication, effectively communicating goals and inspire trust within your team, and also influence, being comfortable persuading and promoting and delegating work within your team to gain their trust. And lastly, learning agility, so knowing when to change course and help others to do so. You go to the next one. Yeah. So general actions and behaviors of a leader. Um, I was able to find 15 sort of things effectively to do with extreme consistency that separates them from other leaders. So we'll go down the list here. First one being they know the difference between activity and results. They wake up early and violently execute what needs to be done that day. They focus on making small and continuous improvements. They live with purpose and make decisions that align with their values. And they take care of their bodies. They focus on what is in their immediate control. They ensure all goals are measurable and time bound. They take ownership and create success. They surround themselves with people who can make them better. They also inspire others to be successful, and they give to cause greater than themselves. So putting themselves last, I would say. They have a consistent schedule on weekdays and weekends. They have a detailed plan for everything, and they never procrastinate or make excuses. And lastly, they persevere and thrive on adversity.
All right, so here we're comparing current leaders to emerging leaders. This is good to know because some of the best leaders in the world have great traits, and they're very basic traits too that you can find anywhere. It's just finding it in certain people that will execute any task. So first, not all leaders are the same. We know this based on like different profiling from some of the top leaders today, like the Jeff Bezoses, the Bill Gates, everybody like that. So some people will share multiple leadership qualities that current leaders have, but they won't have all the same qualities. And then, so first, there are some basic principles that any leader in general should have every day in the workplace. The first one is to embrace risk. A lot of C-suite executives and founders of some corporations have embraced risk when starting up their companies or trying to press other executives. And they ask questions rather than have answers. The best leaders will always ask questions in order to learn more about how to be a better leader, and they will also take people's opinions into perspective. They work across departmental lines. Having other departments recognize you as a good leader will help your chances of getting a promotion and climbing up the corporate ladder, as I like to say, kind of just climbing up the ranks. And then they need to push back when it's necessary rather than just be a yes man. Because the best leaders are willing to challenge others when they believe that a certain action that the other person presents would end up hurting the company. All right. Next, we have the second half of the presentation, which is how to develop a leader. So first, we're going to go through optimal leadership development practices and methodologies. So we divided up this category because practices and methodologies, while they go together, they have like separate meanings. So we decided to separate that, and we'll get to that later. And then we have different development practices for different personalities, how long the development process takes and what goes into it. And then finally, how company cultures affect development. So first, we're going to talk about some practices. So I found just briefly some examples of the best practices for leadership development. Strong executive involvement, tailored leadership competencies, and alignment with business strategy, target multiple levels of leadership, and learn by doing. I just happened to find these when I was doing my research, and I thought it was different to some of the stuff I had, so I put this in here. But we are going to introduce this concept. So based on what an article said, which was the importance of leadership development, leadership is a key activity for corporate HR departments. And only 68% of businesses spend $4,000 or less on leadership development, and that's per person per year. And so if you want to start developing a leader properly, you need to have multiple development practices in order to see results in your trainees. So some of these are online training, and this is a great way to take advantage of the internet and being able to have training available to everyone no matter what. And then there's also on-site development. So this would be where once a leader completes the training, they can apply things that they learned into the actual workplace. And this would be critical for development because it's real life situations. They got to call all the shots. And then we have leadership workshops. So the thing with this is you want to try to offer these workshops during the workday so that it will intrigue people to join, since they wouldn't have to go out of the way to go to the workshop. And it's also important to make it optional too, because it kind of like draws the leaders in, the people who really want to learn how to become a leader, and everybody else can just stick to their regular jobs. And here are some more practices. So this is more detailed, like after all the training. So after the developing leaders have been put through the necessary training and have started to be a manager of a certain branch in the business, it's important to evaluate some of the managers through stakeholders to see if they're satisfied with the performance of the new manager. So satisfaction surveys are the most commonly used tools to evaluate the impact of a manager, but there are some other things to consider when making an impact study on your own. So what's important is evaluating how well they execute two strategies, which is driving performance and preparing for the future. These are something managers really have to do, and it basically means they inspire their team and they could prepare for the future, which is very important for a company, like seeing what you need to do in the next 3 years. They need to know how to solve specific problems, and you got to determine what type of impact metrics you'll use. So there's many types of like impact metrics, but you need to use the ones that are most appropriate for that leader's like position. And then finally, evaluating for impact more than proof. So rather than proving to your stakeholders that he's right for the job, you more have to highlight like what has happened in the business that he has provided, like indirectly, to show how everything's changed and how he's actually had, an impact. And then here we are with the methodologies. So specific practices for leadership development are important. There are certain methodologies that businesses have to follow in order to maximize a trainee's potential. And some leadership development programs fail because they don't practice certain methodologies to ensure the success of their trainees. So a few of these are fearless practice. It's important because they need to practice and learn from their mistakes rather than being criticized and looked down upon. Objective feedback. The one-on-one rule. Since one size doesn't fit all, there needs to be some sort of personalized strategy that matches the trainee's personality and drive. And outside-in perspective. There's too much discussion internally in training, and some people don't give negative feedback out of fear or penalty. And there's not really an easy answer to get an outside in, but a potential answer could be to ask people that are totally outside the department to discuss this person's certain leadership values to see if they would want to be under them and work for them. And then we have different development practices for different personalities. Any employees with leadership potential will not have the same personalities as each other. This was discussed before, but it's good to elaborate it more here. So because of this, there are many different leadership development practices that to develop different skills. So some examples include coaching style, which focuses on nurturing the strengths of every member. Visionary leadership, they're great at strategic planning. Servant leadership, doing whatever it takes to get the job done. Autocratic leadership, this is probably one of the worst ones to do, and it's when they don't take feedback and make decisions on their own. Laissez-faire leadership, which empowers their employees through delegation. And then democratic leadership, and it takes input from all the stakeholders and analyze feedback before making a decision. And then here are a few others. Pace setter leadership, which focuses on performance, so you can have fast results. Transformational leadership, which relies heavily on setting goals, clear communications, and employee motivation. Transactional leadership, which is when good employees are rewarded and employees that are underperforming are penalized. Bureaucratic leadership, followers are expected to strictly follow the rules. And then lastly, strategic leadership, which is all about influencing others and make decisions to lead to long-term success.
So I'll be talking about how long the development process takes and what goes into it. The leadership development process can take up to 12 to 18 months and should involve direct application in the workplace. This doesn't mean that you can't have like workshops or certain things like, I don't know, maybe like a week-long program or something like that, but the full process takes longer and should involve more like hands-on experience. And really, even after that, leaders should continue to learn and be proactive in keeping up with like the new methods of leadership and what is working in the modern age. Activities that encourage critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, and communication should be used to hone the interpersonal skills of a leader. So these activities can include like maybe like a seminar or activities where you have a small group and people are put into situations such as like maybe like building like a tower out of like spaghetti sticks. That was one example used by some leaders. Leaders should definitely be self-reflective and receive feedback, especially when they're in the beginning stages of their leadership. Identifying clear objectives and realistic solutions, maintaining focus on the task at hand, and being prepared for uncomfortable situations are all integral to leadership development, as those skills will be used when they take control and they lead. All of these actions are only constructive, though, if the developing leaders able to evaluate their results and see if what they were setting out to accomplish was accomplished, and if not, how they can do better next time and react to improve the situation where they're on. So the type of company culture that is best at retaining emerging leaders and leading to success for the company as a whole would be a culture of mutual respect, which is beneficial for both employees, managers, and the company. One survey done by Mercer Consulting, which is one of the top HR consulting firms, found that being treated with respect ranked as the #1 factor in what creates a top-flight work environment. And research in positive psychology shows that one's level of happiness is the most important factor in predicting their success. So when you put those together, you can kind of realize that the employees are their well-being and their mental state and drive to come to work every day is going to be much more important factor. So that should be more highly prioritized when thinking about setting a culture for a company. The people first culture, as one source put it, prioritizes the well-being of employees. And studies have shown that this leads to greater employee retention, productivity, creativity, and trust, among other benefits. And this chart we have next will show some of those benefits more specifically.
Record.
So this graph shows how the level of engagement and level of happiness, and basically the wherever employees are more engaged and more passionate about their work, you see a dramatic decrease in absenteeism, in high turnover sectors, low turnover sectors, thefts, accidents, quality defects, patient safety incidents, and then sizable increase, about 10% in customer satisfaction, and then about a 20% increase in productivity and profits. And this is comparison of the most engaged teams, which is the top 25%, to the least, the bottom 25%, showing just how much of an impact this type of culture can have on a company.
All right, and there are some of our sources that we cited. Thank you for listening to this presentation. I'm Michael.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Rob.
And this is the end of our presentation. Thank you.